right, okie doke. So our next teacher is Miss Beth Davey. She is our music educator in St. Louis and also 2018 Missouri Teacher of the Year. So let's go ahead and give it up for her.
Good afternoon. Where the mind is without fear and the head held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms toward perfection, where this clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom. Let my country awake. Poet Rabindranath Tagore penned these words in 1901 in reflection of British rule over his home in India. He dreamed of a brighter world, a more just world in which the mind is without fear and the head held high, where knowledge is free. These words of fearlessness remind me of the responsibility of education and the hope to diminish fear in my classroom. My students, my beautiful students in St. Louis, enter my music classroom with their own stories, their own dreams, and their own fears. I've seen the impact that fear can have on a young person, and I claim my civic and professional duty to diminish fear, to replace fear. All children, all humans for that matter, are constantly living between the tensions of our own identities and the projection of the world around us. We operate out of foundational questions, such as, am I wanted? Am I loved? Do I matter? Do I belong? We must consider then the implications of these foundational human identities for immigrant children and their families entering or attempting to enter our country. For children sent to detention centers for months on end, what is their question? What is their answer to this question? Do I matter? For young people who are still separated and awaiting reunification with their families, what is their internal response to am I loved? And for unaccompanied minors who are being shuffled among these detention centers with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, how might they reflect on do I belong? It is our responsibility as humans to affirm the humanity in all on this earth. And we cannot dismiss this call as mere feelings or fluff. These concepts of belongingness and safety and care are vital to our success as humans, and they exist not only in our personal perceptions, but also at a biological level. You see, when the human brain is in stress, it releases hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol to address our reactionary functions. Increased cortisol release over time hardwires pathways between our hippocampus and our amygdala, meaning that an individual subjected to highly stressful environments or traumatic events is predispositioned to react in fear, to perceive every such situation as a threat. In fact, any act of discrimination, which is much of the root of our conversation here today, is proven to increase cortisol release. And imagine our society as a whole, our society's predisposition to fear then, with so many individuals living under racist, ableist, sexist, classist, and ageist practices. But we are talking about more than mere discrimination. We are here to talk about detention, criminalization, family separation, and deportation. Our governmental practices are conditioning children toward long-term fear, which ripples painfully to all of our communities, and this happens also at the cellular level. Our bodies are incredible, and our cells are amazing. They're biodegradable and they're regenerative. When we experience stress, the cortisol does not change the genes of our DNA, but cortisol does change the shape of the DNA structure. And that shape carries through. So our stressful experiences travel through cell regeneration, and these DNA shapes are not easy to reverse. Stress is imprinted in our cells themselves. So even at the molecular level, our bodies remember what we have gone through. this conditioning toward fear has long-term effects on life health. Adverse childhood experiences are known to disrupt cognitive development, increase the likelihood of substance abuse later in life, heighten the chance of heart disease, and significantly reduce life expectancy. By detaining children, we are creating a health crisis for our future. Detention changes children's brains. Persecution shifts children's biology, and fear physically halts children's futures. And immigrant children are all our children. As fellow citizens on this earth, we must work diligently to see our children freed, our children educated, and our children to grow without fear. Fear is not our path. Fear causes us to question, to react. Fear replaces trust, but, and this is not because I indoctrinate my children with socialism, but love replaces all. Love is a science, love is a sacrifice, and love is always absolutely worth it. Immigrant children and their families are not other. They are us. And collectively, we are all sisters and brothers and mothers and fathers and teachers and sojourners on this earth. We all benefit from collective hope, not collective fear. And we do this together so that where the mind is led forward into ever-widening thought and action into that heaven of freedom, let my country awake. Thank you.